Good day. This is Dr. Jana Price-Sharps at Mind Pilot. We are going to continue our discussion today about parenting. I think truly parenting is the hardest job we'll ever have, and we have no book that tells us how to parent. So last time we discussed parenting, we talked about being on the same page. If you're going to split up, you need to make sure that the kid or kids don't get drawn into the whole divorce or separation procedures. Never talk bad about the other parent. It just destroys kids. Even if you hate the other parent, don't talk bad about the other parent. Don't put the kids in the middle. It really does destroy them. And I've been teaching college classes since 1995. And when I bring up being in the middle of a divorce, you can see all the 20-year-olds shaking their head yes and talking about how stressful it is. So it stays with them, so don't do it. Even if you're mad, go talk to a therapist, vent to your best friend, but keep the kids out of it. So what do you do with children? What are some things that help and some things that don't help? Besides school involvement, which is the number one protective factor in looking at preventing delinquency, making sure you're checking in with your child or teenager on a regular basis. We get so busy with life, and now a majority of households, both people are working, and so they forget to check in very often. And especially if you have a fairly independent adolescent or even, younger child, it behooves you to check in, say how's things going, find out who their friends are, find out what their favorite movies are, what music are they listening to, how are they doing in school. All of that is really important. And you don't have to interrogate them, but on a regular basis, you need to be checking in about that. Meet their friends, have their friends over to your place. I know it can be a pain, but you need to know who these people are that are influencing your child or adolescents. Meet the parents of the children or adolescents that your kid is hanging around. Are they good people, or do they have a lot of chaos in their lives? That may determine whether or not you want or allow your child or adolescent to go over to that other person's house. So find out who those people are. Find out where they work, what they do, who are they friends with. Find out information, because when you start looking at kids that are abused, and I'm talking sexual abuse primarily, or physical abuse, or who've been introduced to drugs, so often it's babysitters or friends of the family or family members. And so be careful with your children. And, ask them about what video games they're playing. Ask them what apps they have on their phone. All of that is important information. There's many adolescents that I've run into that have apps where they can meet up with somebody that's supposedly their age. And so they go to meet this person, they drive over there, they go over with friends, and then they get harmed. And it very often is not a kid their age, and very often it is somebody who has bad thoughts, bad ideas of what they're going to do with your child. So I'm not trying to make you paranoid, but maybe I am just a little bit, because you want your child to have the best life that he or she can have. And so sometimes you have to be a little protective to help that person grow and not have additional trauma in life. When I say additional trauma, I think sometimes just going through K through 12, there's traumatic events. A huge percentage of people get bullied in school, and most of the time they don't tell their parents. They ignore the situation. They tell themselves they're okay, and then they start not wanting to go to school because they have a stomach ache, or they think they're getting sick, or their back is hurting, or something like that. If your kid is doing that a lot, find out why. Find out what's going on in the classroom. If you have time, then go and volunteer in the classroom, especially K through 6. Find out what's happening. And I know a lot of parents can't do that. You have your day job and you may not be able to take the time to do that. But it's really important to check in. Eating dinner together is a great way of doing that. I know it's not always possible. Kids have sports and gymnastics and band and everything else. But when you can, sit down and have a meal together. And if you can do that at least 3 or 4 times a week, right? Check in. Say, hey, how was school today? I know you were going to take a math test. How did that go? So that checking in, and I know I said this on the last one, but it's kind of a hard thing to do, but it's so important. The other thing is really think about what you're saying yes to. It's so hard sometimes when our kids are going, well, all the other kids get to do this, and everybody else gets this, and everybody else gets that. Think about it. Talk to your spouse about it if you have a spouse, and really think about what's in your kids' best interest. It's okay if they're mad at you for saying no. I see a lot of parents cave because they don't want their kid to be upset with them. And I'm like, yeah, you really need to just tell them no, that it's not okay and you're not going to go do this. And they're going to get mad, and that's okay. I tell parents it's okay that your kid gets mad. It's how they deal with the anger that's important. Are they, throwing things or that kind of thing? Unacceptable. But if they're mad, they can be mad. They can have that emotion, but they need to handle it in a way that is acceptable. The other thing is being consistent. If something is no today, it should not be yes tomorrow. It should be no tomorrow as well, unless something has massively changed. If it's no today because they haven't gotten their grades up and in 3 weeks they got the grades up, then maybe it's a yes. But consistency is really important. Kids want that stability. When I worked with a lot of juveniles, I would ask them, well, what do you think your parents should do? Oh, I think they should ground me. I think they should take my phone away from me and my computer away from me, all these things. And they said, but don't tell my parent that because I don't want that to happen. But they knew that they needed limits. And that's one of your jobs as a parent, is to provide those limits, because kids don't have limits yet. They do as they get older, but when they're younger, they don't have those limits. So provide those limits and stick to them. And if you're going to change the limits, make sure you and your partner or ex are on the same page so you're presenting a united front. I really would encourage you, if you do end up in a divorce or a separation, co-parent. Meaning, if the kid is grounded at mom's house, the kid needs to be grounded at dad's house until whatever happens or needed to happen. Don't undermine the other person. Consistency is so very important for your kids. So co-parenting, having those discussions, not in front of the kids, making a decision about what's okay, what isn't okay, what should be allowed, what isn't allowed, all of that needs to be addressed. And I know it's hard work, and I know most of you are working full-time jobs, and then you're coming home and now you're running kids around and you're tired, and I get that. But the choices you make today with your kids have long-term repercussions in the future for that kid as they become an adult. And if you work outside of the home and you work with people, you see the effects of poor parenting. They don't show up to work. They show up to work late. They lie. They are very impulsive. When parents don't set limits, they don't tell kids no, there isn't any repercussion for inappropriate behavior, then you get out of control kids, they turn into out of control adults. So the hard work that you're doing today, even if you're tired, even if you don't want to have that conversation, make sure that you do it because it has long-standing impact. And when parents take the time, you can truly tell with the 20-year-olds who has had good parenting, who has been told no, who has been told you have responsibility. There's things that you have to get done. You can tell. Set that child of yours up for success. But that also means sometimes telling them no. I hope this is helpful. Please feel free and leave your comments. If there's questions you have, I'll address them to the best I can. But in the meantime, I hope you subscribe. Thank you for joining Mind Pilot today. Have a great day.